This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, ursaminorouttfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, ursaminorouttfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Welcome, everyone, to a special bonus episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and occasionally I'll be bringing you some bonus episodes highlighting some amazing individuals who are participating in some fun outdoor events or helping some incredible nonprofits, as well as some up-and-coming outdoor companies. Regular episodes will continue to come out on Mondays, and when we have a bonus episode, those will drop on Fridays. We have a new bonus episode this week featuring an amazing guest from Colorado. Her name is Em, and you can follow her on Instagram at Emily_goes_exploring. In this episode, Em shares with us what it's like moving from the Midwest to the Rocky Mountains. She shares some of her memorable 14ers and takes us across the globe by sharing some of her adventures in Costa Rica, South Africa, and Europe. She also shares about an amazing trek that she'll be starting at the beginning of September across the Atlantic, through hiking the scenic West Highland Way in Scotland. She's currently fundraising to help raise funds for the Cairn Project and their grants program, which offers funding to local groups around the country that are connecting girls and gender-expansive youth to opportunities to learn in outdoor spaces. Without further ado, let's dive right into this episode featuring our badass guest, Em. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm really excited to have an amazing guest on today's podcast episode. Her name is Em. She's doing some amazing nonprofit work with the Cairn Project that she'll be sharing with us, and just going over some of her incredible adventures, both domestically and abroad. Thank you, Em, for joining us on the podcast. You know, we always like to start off by asking our guests how long they've been hiking for and how they kind of got started.
Yeah, I really got into hiking when I moved to Colorado 6 years ago. It's actually what brought me out here. I grew up in northern Illinois, where we don't really have access to like trails that are not paved, but my family would go on camping trips to like Devil's Lake State Park and Peninsula State Park and just local areas. So I kind of like fell in love with those adventures and knew I wanted more of that in my life. So that's what brought me out here. And once I got over the altitude sickness of adjusting, I started with just like the small local trails in my neighborhood in Frisco, and then kind of built up my comfortability with distance and altitude as time went on.
So I'm always curious, with Illinois, what is the hiking scene like there in the state?
There's not really. There's like one park, and it's on the Iowa border, and it's really muddy, and there's lots of mosquitoes. It follows like rivers. It always is like woods that follow a river. There's not really a hiking scene. Most people would drive up to Wisconsin to do anything outdoorsy, but even then, you're like most likely getting eaten alive by mosquitoes like half the year.
You know, this is my personal opinion, but I feel like Colorado is the state for outdoor activities, like regardless of the season. How was it adjusting to Colorado and the elevation, like you said, dealing with altitude sickness, you know, going from Illinois to Colorado?
You know, I've been abroad before, but I never expected to have like such culture shock like within my own country as I did moving out here. I went from like just outside of Chicago, Illinois to Breckenridge like right away. And I'm not a skier or a snowboarder. I had never heard of the brand Sorel before, which seemed like a requirement to live there, was like owning a collection of Sorel boots and Arc'teryx, and I had never even heard of these things before, so it was definitely a steep learning curve in terms of like what things you actually do need, what warm coats really are, like what requires like hiking boots and what you could get away with in sneakers. Like it was a whole cultural adjustment for me, but I loved it. Like it took like probably 2 weeks for the headache to go away, and then another like 2 weeks for me to be able to run more than a block without feeling like my like heart was going to explode. But I like the mountains are worth it.
Yeah, and Colorado is so diverse depending on the part of the state that you live in. How would you describe your neck of the woods in and around your neighborhood?
Technically, right now, I live in like West Denver. So it's an area that's like gentrifying super rapidly. You're seeing a lot of like cute old bungalows get torn down and like 4-unit townhomes put up there. So honestly, like it's a little sad to me. I love old buildings, and I think we're kind of unfortunately, a lot of Denver's like charm and character, I think, is kind of getting stamped out. Just as like so many people are moving here from across the country to do the outdoorsy thing. But we are really lucky that we have lots of access to trails. So
yeah, do you remember what your first hike was when you moved there to Colorado and what that experience was like?
Yeah, my first hike was Mount Royal in Frisco, and I had gone to the REI garage sale and just like started stocking up on any gear I could find in my price range. And I think it was like 4 miles and mostly uphill the whole way. And I was like so gassed, but I just kept taking pictures because I was like, this is my backyard now. Like, this is so cool. And I think I can power through a lot of pain for the hype. And that's just kind of what it was.
Right on. You have a really great travel history, both domestically and abroad. What are some of your favorite destinations here in the United States?
I haven't done as much traveling in the States as I probably should have at this point, but I really love the Tetons. I think are absolutely gorgeous. I have a friend who lives up there, and we've gotten to do some exploring near Driggs, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And I really like in spring and in fall, like Moab is really cool, especially the trails that are outside of the national parks. A lot of my friends have dogs, so we never really make it into the national parks because we always want them to come too. But there's some really cool areas over there that aren't even necessarily labeled. You just kind of like see where there's a bunch of cars pulled over, and then you get out and you look and see what's around too.
Yeah,
and then I was just gonna say, Washington this fall like took my heart.
Yeah, I'll definitely ask you a little bit more about Washington because that's my hometown. But I was gonna say, one picture that caught my attention, and I think everybody that does this hike gets the picture just because it's such a unique start to the hike. But that's for Corona Arch in Moab and the railroad tracks. Yeah. How was your experience hiking out to Corona Arch? Did you know that that arch was waiting for you at the end of the trail, or?
Not really. I was with a friend who had her dog with us, so we couldn't go into any of the national parks. And so we just kind of have like gone on AllTrails looking for like dog friendly trails. And we're like, let's try this one. And it was actually really cool. She has a border collie, and like all the parts where like the humans had to climb up ladders, the dog just like launched up the rock, and it just like added a whole nother layer of entertainment.
Oh yeah, there's a couple dogs when I went up there, and it just surprised me how fast they can scramble up those rocks. They're like almost like mountain goats. Yeah.
Gemini Bridges is another really cool area in Moab that's like fun to explore too.
Oh, and what kind of unique features does that entail?
Like more fun red rock formations, and then it goes into like a deep like canyon crevassey thing. So you can go at the bottom and like hike through the bottom or around the top and get some really cool pictures.
Oh, right on. I'll have to add that to the list next time I'm in Moab. Now, you have an impressive list of countries you got a chance to visit in Europe. I'll miss a few of them, but some that stand out: France, Ireland, Sweden, Portugal. What's your experiences been visiting and traveling Europe and even doing a little bit of hiking?
Honestly, like, I feel like it's an understatement or a weird cliche to say it's been life-changing, but I have learned so much about myself as a person and, like, humanity in general and just gained so much, I think, of a broader perspective or more objective perspective on the world, like and how the United States is versus like the rest of the world, and can see more objectively like how we function, and being outdoors too, getting to see the difference between like Colorado hiking outdoorsy culture versus those same things in Portugal and France. And I was really surprised by how different it was. So I feel like in France and in Portugal, it was so much less about like the brands you were wearing while you were hiking or the gear that you had or whether you're tracking it on Strava, right? Like nobody really cares about those things there. They like go out for the outdoor enjoyment. And if you're in a pair of like duct taped together, like 10-year-old approach shoes, but you're having fun, then your mission is accomplished and you're living life. Or like in France, there were people like doing belle donne and like jeans and cashmere with like a basket of wine. Like it's just crazy. It's amazing.
You know, I've slowly starting to see more and more people bring up like charcuterie boards on hikes here in the Pacific Northwest. So I think some of it's making it over the Atlantic over to the United States.
Amazing.
Now, Em, you've done some amazing outdoor activities in all of those countries. Are there any that kind of stand out for you? Probably there's a lot of them that are core memories, but without having to like rank them, are there like 2 or 3 that kind of really stick out in your mind?
Oh, yeah. And I'm happy to rank them too. So starting at 3, I'm going to go with like the local trails around Cape Town, South Africa. Lion's Head, Table Mountain. They're gorgeous. And they kind of reminded me the most of Colorado in a way, but they're overlooking the ocean. So like it compares, but it doesn't compare. Number 2 is Belle Donne in the French Alps. I got to go hiking with some friends I had made in France, and the French don't like mess around. I don't think they know what a switchback is because their trails are like straight up. My friend said it was like a chill regular hike, and it was like 12 miles and 5,000 feet of gain, and I was dying. But at the top, like it was misty at the top, so it kind of looked like we were in like Lord of the Rings or something. And then there's like a herd of sheep that comes like over the hill, and there's like a shepherd on foot with their sheep. And all of my French friends were making fun of me because I had never seen a shepherd before, and they were asking like, what holds the sheep together in the States? And I was like, a fence? Like, it was so new for me. And then there's like a little chalet at the top where you can get like wine and cheese and hot chocolate. Like, it was just insane. But
No way.
I think nothing compares to the Kungsleden Trail in Sweden. I had rented a car to go camping in the Arctic. I didn't really have a plan. I was just kind of like, there's one road. I can't mess it up too bad. And I stumbled upon, it's like a 430 kilometer thru-hike trail. And I just like car camped at a couple different trailheads and did day hikes from there. But it was like the equivalent of like hiking in a pumpkin spice latte while listening to Taylor Swift Evermore. It was like the most perfect like fall colors that were just completely surrounded by you. And then there's like this mist and the mountains are all black. So it had like a mood, and it was so gorgeous. I was like wrecked by the end of that week because I kept just adding on more and more trail miles because it was so pretty. I never wanted to turn around. So yeah, the Kungsleden Trail, yeah, it's pretty spectacular, especially in September. I cannot recommend it highly enough.
Oh, well, I'll be sure to add that to the episode show notes so people can take a look because I haven't heard of it, but it just sounds magical, especially in the fall, right?
Yeah, so the weather can be a little like questionable, and there's bears. I've heard they're friendlier there. But yeah, it seems amazing.
And I got to ask them, being near the Arctic Circle, did you get a chance to see the Northern Lights?
Yeah, so I spent a few days in Abisko, which is, I think, the northernmost town in Sweden. And I was there for like 3 or 4 days. And like the last day I woke up, that I was supposed to leave that night, and I had heard that the Northern Lights were out the night before and I missed them. And I woke up that morning and it was the first clear sky day we'd had the entire time. And like new mountains came out across the lake that I hadn't known were there because the clouds were so thick. So I was like, okay, I'm going to stay one more night, and then I just have to wake up at 5 a.m. to get this rental car back in time. And somebody came like running in there's like a hostel up there, and we were at the hostel bar, and somebody came running in at like midnight and said the lights were out. So everybody like files out to go check out the northern lights, and in person it kind of just looks like a gray like genie tail in the sky, like from Aladdin.
Yeah.
But then you like get your camera out and you start taking pictures, and on the iPhone it's like lime green. And we just like sat there and stared at it for like 2 hours. And after that it was so cold. I was like hyped up. I had the zoomies. I couldn't go to sleep. So I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to start driving back now. I don't know. Yeah, they were amazing. If anything would make you believe in aliens, I think it might be the Northern Lights.
Oh, how interesting. So from what, I think a lot of people see the Northern Lights on videos and pictures, but it is different from what you're seeing with your eyes compared to what your phone's picking up.
So much more saturated on the phone than it is in person.
I have to keep that in mind. So I'm extremely colorblind, and green is one of those colors that I'm colorblind. So I'm wondering what the effect would be, if it would be like reds and greens I mix up occasionally. So I wonder if maybe they'd appear red to me.
I don't know if they would be like red or silver.
I'll have to
they
go
would
visit.
Be creepy in red.
Yeah, right. Now, coming back to the States, one thing that we like to do with our guests is do a deep dive in their Instagram and pick out a picture that kind of catches our attention. And, Colorado is known for their 14ers. How was it climbing your first 14er, and how many have you checked off the list?
So my first one was Quandary Peak about 8 months after I moved here. And it was with a friend who kind of like oversold their hiking abilities. So it took us quite a while and we got hailed on at the top. And I was like, I think I coaxed myself down. Like my mantra the entire descent was just like burger and a beer, burger and a beer. Like we're just going to get a burger and a beer when this is done. We'll be fine. So yeah, I'm very food motivated. So a lot of times on 14ers for me, it's all about the food, like on the way up and the way down. I've done a few repeats. So I think I've done like 10 total, but I've cheated a little bit because we have a series called the Decalibron, and it's 4 of them linked up together, but there's not really a big saddle between 3 of them. So like we actually missed one of the peaks for taking the photos because we didn't realize like it was the other mountain. We took 2 pictures on a different mountain and just switched out the signs and called it good enough. But yeah, so I've done 10 so far. There's definitely tons of people out here who like make it their mission in Colorado to bag them all. But I just don't find that much joy in waking up at 4 a.m. to walk uphill for 5 hours. So I try and limit it to like a couple a year.
And, now that you've kind of climatized to the elevation there in and around Denver, is it still hard, climbing up to 14,000 feet? And do you still get a little bit of altitude sickness?
Yeah. So when I lived in Frisco, that's 10,000 feet. So I was really surprised when I moved down to Denver and then tried to do my first 14er, the difference between like living at 10,000 and living at 5,000. So now I usually find that if I'll just go the night before and like car camp at the trailhead so that I have a chance to acclimatize a little bit to that 10,000. And then I just go slow uphill. I don't love an uphill anyways, but I just find if I rush it too fast or just drive straight from Denver and like immediately start going up, that's when I'm more likely to start getting like woozy and getting headaches.
Any tips or tricks to kind of help if you are feeling a little woozy or starting to get a headache?
So I carry oxygen with me. I've started doing trail running at high altitude, and just with like post-COVID asthma, I just always carry the oxygen with me just in case. So that's super helpful. I think like every pharmacy type store out here carries it just because we have so many people come from out of state and try and do these things. So definitely bring a can of oxygen with you just in case. And tons of snacks. And then if you think you have enough snacks, bring more. And same with water and electrolytes. The electrolytes will save you, and save your drinking for after the hike instead of like the night before, because alcohol hits you so much harder at altitude. So I just, yeah, make sure you're hydrated and like well fed going into it and throughout the whole process.
Solid tips. Now, you mentioned it, Em, already that you've got a chance to visit the Pacific Northwest. What are some memorable experiences or sights and sounds that you got to see while visiting the Pacific Northwest?
So I spent a lot of time in Washington. I kind of accidentally moved to Bellingham for like a month. So I got to see whales for the first time. I went down to Port Angeles and got on the last whale watching bus of the entire season. And they said because of global warming, the migration was behind schedule this year. So we got to see like 25 whales, which was like sad to see that it was affecting them, but also it was so cool. And I think a most memorable smell is like the stench of a seal colony was something very new to me.
They are not the cleanest animals, at least where they hang out.
Yeah, you could smell it from like a soccer field distance away. It was crazy. And then it like stays with you for like a whole nother soccer field distance after you've passed it. Yeah, that was interesting. But I also spent quite a bit of time in Olympic National Park because the Cascades were on fire. So I got to go like trail running in the rainforest there and spend quite a bit of time on the beaches. And it was just gorgeous. I tried to soak in as much ocean as possible since we don't really have that.
Yeah, and I think, in one of your captions, you mentioned that you were kind of longing for, was it Scotland? And the Pacific Northwest kind of reminded you of, at least on the coast, of those Scotland coastlines?
Yeah, I have never really been like an ocean girl. Like we went to Florida when I was a kid and I don't know, it's not my vibe. And that's just what I've always associated with the ocean. And when I got to go to Ireland and Scotland and see like the waves breaking on those like rugged coasts, like I was enamored and like I would just sit there forever and watch it. Like it was like the ocean went from being like cute girl on vacation to like a moody bitch, and I loved it. And that's kind of reminded me of Washington a little bit because you have like it's that luscious like green like flora and fauna, and then you have like the dark rocks and the jagged edges, and then yeah, the ocean is right there. It's just, yeah, I love it.
You described it beautifully, Em. And I'm glad you mentioned the ocean and the beach, because I feel like what Colorado is to the West Coast, especially with the outdoor community, Costa Rica is like the outdoor mecca when it comes to tropical environments, because you can do so much there. And you got a chance to visit Costa Rica, and you did some amazing, adventures both on and off the beach. What are some memorable things that you got to do in Costa Rica?
I went with a friend and we were mostly in the Manuel Antonio area, and we got to go ziplining through the rainforest, which it was my first time ziplining and I wanted to be so stoic. And then I watched the video afterwards and I'm like screaming like a little girl at one point and I don't even remember that happening. So that was embarrassing. And then we got done ziplining early or something. So our guide took us on this like old Jeep and we went mudding. And it was so much fun. We were just like, there was a big wash that had kind of started to dry out. And we were just like doing donuts in the mud and it was spraying everywhere. It was so cool. And then we did some hiking in Manuel Antonio National Park. It's like a rainforest area and then there's a beach. And I just remember the monkeys there were like so aggressive. There was like a Russian couple feeding them Oreos. And then at one point the monkeys like ganged up on them and like jumped them for the rest of the package. And it was hilarious.
That's why you don't feed the wildlife, right?
Yeah. But like the people in Costa Rica are so nice and so chill. And I speak some Spanish, but I have like the worst gringo accent ever. And like the Spanish there was easy for me because they talk really slow. So I was like, oh, this is like a great way to build my confidence. Like I can actually understand what they're saying back too. So I'm like, it's just great practice. And it was so much fun.
Now, you have been selected to be an ambassador to an amazing project, and I'm really excited for you to share with our audience what you'll be doing here in September. But you've been chosen to participate with the Cairn Project. Can you share a little bit about what you'll be doing in September and how this kind of came about?
Yeah, so I became aware of this organization through another podcast about female adventurers. And they're one of the contributors to the Summit Scholarship. But this organization, the Cairn Project, it was started by two female thru-hikers. And what they do is they raise money by promoting women in the outdoors. So I'll be doing an adventure fundraiser for them. And they take that money, they pool it together, and then they issue grants to female outdoor education programs and private women wanting to do expeditions. So if you're wanting to do Everest and you need some help with the funding, you can apply for a grant through them. So they do some really awesome work to help get more women outdoors and girls outdoors. And I'm really stoked to be working with them because for me, I found myself once I started doing things outside and started hiking and trail running. And I think the whole world would be better if more women felt that kind of empowerment and got that kind of confidence. So in September, I will be through hiking the West Highland Way in Scotland. So it's 96 miles from Milnavi, just outside of Glasgow, all the way to Fort William, and then summiting Ben Nevis at the end, which is the tallest mountain in Scotland. And I'm doing this to kind of promote the Cairn Project. And so all the donations that I receive go directly to them, and they get to help other women get outdoors.
Oh, that's an amazing project that you'll be helping out with. You know, one thing that I've really enjoyed, so I was gone off the mainland United States for almost 10 years. And before I moved, you didn't see too many solo female hikers out on the trails. And when I came back, it was so great to not just see solo female hikers, but female only groups out on the trails. And I recently did the enchantments here in Washington, and Asgard Pass, if you know, it's 2,000 feet in less than a mile that you have to climb. And there are just some badass women that were trail running up this thing. And I was just blown away on how they were just like mountain goats going up these steep terrain. And it's just great to, see the diversity, not just, with women, but people from all walks of life, all different backgrounds, being able to enjoy the outdoors. And I think the Cairn Project, with being able to help women enjoy the outdoors. And like you said, when people go outside, they tend to find themselves. And I feel the same way as you. The outdoors has really helped me not define who I am, but definitely provided growth that I never knew I had the potential for, especially with some of the crazy hikes and adventures that are all around the world. Now, when it comes to this trail that you're going to be doing, 96 miles, do you have a set goal, like how many miles you want to do each day, or do you have an end date that you want to complete it by?
So I have a little bit of leeway in my schedule. I'm kind of hoping I'll magically get a good weather break in Scotland to do it. The general itinerary people follow is between 10 and 15 miles per day. So I'm going to try and start off at 15, but I know I want to take a rest day to go kayaking at Loch Lomond. And then in Scotland, they have these things called bothies, and they're like these old little stone huts that are like hundreds of years old, but you can stay in them for free. They're like along the trails. So I'm adjusting the trail mileage one day to make sure I can stay in a bothy. I have no idea why I want to stay in this creepy old little stone hut, but I do. So we're doing that. And then I'm planning on taking a rest day at the end before doing the summit as well.
Here in the United States, when it comes to some of the longer through hikes, they have like resupply stations. Are there resupply stations there in Scotland that you'll be able to kind of get more food or gear?
So there are a couple of towns along Loch Lomond that are pretty well known for having like restaurants and inns and some like grocery stores. For me, though, I have a lot of food allergies and like intolerances that make it really difficult, I found, for me to eat out in the UK, especially for some reason. So I am working with a Sherpa company, and they will actually be dropping my resupply bag off. I booked one night at like an official campsite with an indoor heated structure. So hopefully, like, if I'm wet and cold the first 5 days, I'll at least have like one night that I'm warm. So I'm having my resupply bag dropped off there and then picked up the next day and taken to my final destination. So that way I don't have to carry everything with me, but I won't have to try and rely on what's in like small town Scotland for being gluten-free and dairy-free.
Now, Em, have you been able to dial in your pack list for this trip already?
That's a great question. I've made one list on paper and I've kind of put most of it in my pack and did some test hikes with it just to make sure like I can carry it. Because I'm a tiny human, so I usually struggle with the weight portion of a backpacking trip. But I think I have it fairly well dialed in. Yeah, I'm pretty good about it. Well, it's 75%
Nice.
there. I've got a few weeks to figure it out.
Exactly. Now, for folks that want to help out and, track your progress, how can they get involved, whether it's donating, advocacy? What are some of the ways the audience can help you out on your journey?
Donating is always very much appreciated. By clicking the link in the show notes, you'll see there are a couple really cool incentives as well. For a $25 donation, you can be entered to win 2 ski passes for Silverton Mountain. It's a backcountry course here in Colorado. And for $15, you get included on an online class my friend Elisa Lieb and I are co-hosting on meal prepping and nutrition for big long-distance trips like the West Highland Way that I'm doing. Elisa is a registered dietitian, owner of Peak to Peak Nutrition, and a mountain athlete herself, and will be including special considerations for dietary restrictions, especially just because that's something I'll be working around on this trip. And if donating isn't within your budget, I totally get it. Sharing my Instagram posts about the fundraiser or the Cairn Projects directly on social media is super helpful too to boost their reach. And honestly, if this is something you're really stoked about, I would look into joining their next ambassador cycle too, because it's been such a great way for me to meet other like-minded women I would have not connected with otherwise.
Yeah, we'll be sure to add everything in the episode show notes so they can follow along, donate. With the Cairn Project, is it the same trail system each year? Does it kind of shift from different parts of the world, or are there a couple of different options to do trails?
Yeah, so as an ambassador, when you apply, you tell them what you want to do. So I already knew I wanted to hike the West Highland Way. So in my ambassador application, I pitched that as my trip. It was something I was already planning on doing and funding myself. And I just wanted to kind of layer in another deeper purpose to justify, taking 12 days to walk 100 miles across the ocean.
Well, we'll definitely be cheering you on and, supporting you along the way on this journey. When do you start the hike?
Yeah, so I'm actually hoping to start it August 31st, and then I just need to have it wrapped up by September 11th. So that's the window I'm shooting for. Let's hope the weather is nice to me.
Everybody cross their fingers and their toes for Em that she gets some good weather, at least some weather breaks so it's not, drizzy and raining. I'm excited to see your summit photo at the end of the trip, because I think it's going to be amazing, and you'll probably have the biggest smile on your face once you make it to the end.
Yeah. When I was in Scotland before, I was going to go hike one of their mountains, and this older gentleman I met was very concerned for my safety, and I told him I have climbed 4,200 meter peaks in the States, and he was like, no, your math is wrong, you mean 400. And I was like, oh no, I mean 4,200, 14,000 feet. I can handle 4,000 feet, it'll be fine.
Now, talking about summits, when it comes to some day hikers, I feel like a lot of them have a regular routine that they do, whether it's at the summit or maybe once they make it out. Do you have a regular routine that you do, whether it's, a favorite meal or snack on the trail, maybe just a moment of zen once you make it to the top?
I guess I have different routines for different kind of hikes. I'm very food motivated, so I always make sure that I have something I'm looking forward to on the hike, snack-wise, because a lot of times that's the only thing that gets me through the elevation gain is having that treat to look forward to at the top. So for sunrise hikes, I normally will grab a patter bar. It's a local Denver company, and their bars are so good and all the ingredients are really clean. And I'll do one of of those with like coffee, and I put coconut cream and protein powder in it. So it's like a whole quick little balanced meal with everything I need for my trip. And then if it's a 14er, I will pre-make a breakfast burrito at camp and wrap it in tinfoil and like shove that in my Hydro Flask, and then pack a LaCroix for the top two, just because the LaCroix is really refreshing, and I love having like that hot meal to look forward to at the top, because you're normally like cold and exhausted by the time you get there. And then for long hikes, or even sometimes, at the end of a 14er, if my breakfast burrito didn't hit the spot, I love a burger and a beer at the end. My Midwest comes out, I guess, when it comes to those food choices, but that's always what I like to reward myself with at the end.
Now, Em, what goes into the summer burrito? Does it change from time to time?
Occasionally it'll change. So normally I make my own cassava flour tortilla flatbready things. So it's a cassava flour tortilla, and then there's usually like baby spinach in there, and sweet potato, and some like scrambled egg and like bacon, and then like hot sauce, and then it gets wrapped up real tight.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
Oh, and avocado. You have to have all of the food groups, so I'm getting like protein, carbs, and fat at the summit, and
There you
then
go.
yeah, it's good.
Now, we've been talking a little bit about pack lists, and when it comes to backpacking, especially long distance hikes like you're going to be doing, I feel like some people tend to carry a luxury item, or maybe it's just when you're traveling, to different parts of the world. But do you have a luxury item that you tend to carry on either hikes or on travel experiences?
I have a Hyper Ice. It's like a little massage gun that's not that light, but I will bring it with. I did a backpacking trip with my friends and I brought it, and they made fun of me because it's like not light. But I was like, but aren't you so glad we can get massages after we've hiked 10 miles? And I'm pretty injury prone, so I find it's like really nice to have, even just like when I'm traveling to Europe, because I have a tendency to overdo it, and I just don't have access to the same recovery resources there as I do here. So definitely the Hyper Ice. And then when I'm traveling like abroad, I usually stay in places that have kitchens I can use, and so I may or may not bring my own like 2-pound bag of cassava flour and a vegan protein powder that I like, because I can't find them over there, except in Portugal. You can buy cassava flour in Portugal.
Good to know.
Yes. They have
Now,
a large Brazilian population, so it's just in every grocery store. I was so stoked.
Now, how do you protect it from, because does it come in like a normal flour bag where it's, like that paper material?
No, it's like plastic-ish, and then it has like a little Ziploc thing at the top. I learned the hard way that I do need to leave it in its original packaging, because they don't tend to love big things of white powder in airport security. So yeah, I have to leave it in its original packaging, and then I try and put it in another Ziploc bag just in case it explodes.
Oh, duly noted. Yeah, don't be carrying unmarked white powder in your luggage. Now, out of all your experiences, both here domestically and abroad, have you had any close calls, whether it's, a curveball with weather, maybe an unexpected wildlife encounter, or just some strange human beings?
Yeah, so I don't know how close it really was, but I think it was the scariest for me. I was in Cape Town, and everyone had been warning me, like, not to go do anything by myself this entire time because it wasn't safe. I'm a very abductable size, so I understand the concern, but I wanted to go on this trail run. And I knew it started in like a really bougie neighborhood on the beach. And then it like followed around this like rocky peninsula thing to get to another beach town. So I was like, it'll be fine. And when I first got there on the trail, there was like this old man like mumbling about watching out for poachers. I have no idea what that means. So I was like, okay, that's weird, but I'm just gonna, put Lizzo in the earbuds and keep going. And I was like 3 miles in, and I'm like coming around this like rocky coast corner. I have like 1 bar of cell phone service, and I see this like weird dinghy boat like tied up to the rocks of the shore. I'm like, I don't know about this. Like, what's a poacher look like? I'm not sure. And I tried texting a picture to my friend, and it wouldn't go through. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna keep going. It'll be fine. and I meant like another like 100 yards or something. And all of a sudden, like this massive dark cloud came in and the winds really picked up, and like the trail went from being like a nice like 2-foot wide distinguished trail to just being like loose scree. So I was like, well, this is all pretty ominous. So I turned around, and when I got back to the beach I started at, there was a different guy there just like chilling, like eating an apple. And he's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like freaked out by his level of concern. And he informed me that 2 German tourist girls were like stabbed on that trail a few days ago, and they never caught the person.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So, and it was like maybe another 100 yards after where I turned around. So yeah, kind of a close call.
Yeah. Oh
Maybe not.
boy.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you turned around, especially with that ominous dark cloud coming overhead.
Yeah. I was like, this is clearly a sign.
Now, for anyone that's interested in hiking or even traveling solo, do you have any tips or advice that you could give folks that are interested in either solo hiking or solo traveling abroad?
I would say, like, I know people love to use the phrase like go big or go home, but I would say start small. Honestly, like I've tried a few things where I'm going to go big, like right out the bat, and it's not been a great experience and has kind of deterred me from trying it again. I think for both like solo hiking and solo traveling, like I just started slowly building my confidence. So like whether that's on a 3-mile trail that's not very steep, and I know I have cell phone service, or like my first solo trip was a weekend camping trip 2 hours from my house. So I just kind of started small and kind of grew my confidence. And as I felt ready to take on more, I did. And I think that honestly, like the amount of like culture out there, like comparison that can happen on social media of like seeing somebody doing something cool and thinking you have to do the same thing or wear the same thing or go to the same places, like it's not great for us. Because only you know what's going to be the most fulfilling for you. So I would say just like trust your gut and follow like what feels right for you. And yeah, start there. And especially for going to foreign countries, at least learn how to say like, please, thank you, and excuse me. I feel like the amount of assistance and like courtesy and like graciousness that you receive when you start trying to meet someone on their level is so much greater than when you just like walk in and be like English and like wait for them to be able to help you. Yeah, and don't be afraid to talk to people on trail or in other countries. I feel like I've met some of the coolest people in like random places on trail or like abroad.
Oh, solid tips. Now, you're going to be traveling to Scotland here in the next couple of weeks. Do you have any travel or hiking goals for the remainder of 2023?
Oh, I would love to tell you that I have the rest of 2023 planned out, but I kind of go like 6 weeks, 2 months at a time. So I know that I want to do this hike in Scotland, the West Highland Way, and I want to try and do as many other Munros, is what they call their mountains, as I can while I'm there. But I've also had this like weird idea that I want to summit Mount Olympus coming up soon. So we'll see. We'll see when that happens. It might be 2023. It might not. I don't know.
Now, the last portion of the podcast is one of my favorite things. It's the this or that questions. I'm going to give you 10 hiking related terms, and you kind of just choose the one that you prefer out of the two. So the first one is, do you prefer ascending or descending?
Descending. 120%. Love it. I hate going uphill.
And when it comes to features on the trail, do you prefer waterfalls or summits?
That's really hard. Both? Can I have both?
Yeah, you could do both. Yeah, okay. For sure.
After a while, summits all start to look the same.
Now, this one you've had experience with both, but do you prefer switchbacks or just straight up?
Switchbacks.
And do you do trekking poles or are you more freehand?
Trekking poles. And
when it comes to eating, do you prefer to eat before the trail or after?
Before, during, and after.
I love it. Do you prefer bushwhacking or going around?
I like a good bushwhack.
And when it comes to bodies of water on the trail, do you jump in or do you prefer to stay dry?
I normally stay dry, but the times I have jumped in, it has been pretty awesome and makes me feel like I should do that more.
Especially in Colorado, you guys have natural cold plunges up there in the Rockies.
Yeah, I'm trying to work through an injury, so I've been cold plunging in the river like every day, and it's definitely, I'm building up my tolerance.
And this one's a tough one, I'm not gonna lie, but sunsets or sunrises?
That is really hard. I think sunrises?
And another tough one, especially for Colorado, because you get both of them. Spring flowers or fall colors?
Fall colors.
But
not here. They're sad here. Wisconsin does them well, and the Pacific Northwest does them well.
Oh, really? Okay. Now, this last one is the controversial one, but do you tag a hike or do you not tag a hike?
I usually tag it if I'm posting like way in the past. If I like can't wait and want to post it right away, and just as a solo female who usually travels alone, I don't like to tag any locations until I've already left that place and I'm like a safe distance away. So I guess it depends a little bit on like when I'm posting, but normally I'll tag.
That was it, Em. Great job. You know, one thing that I want to make sure is just to give you another opportunity to let folks know where they can follow you along, where they can donate, and anything else that you'd like to share about the Cairn Project and what you'll be doing in a couple weeks.
Awesome. I just want to, thank everyone so much, whether you can donate $5, $20, $50, or you just have the capacity to share the post from the Cairn Project or my personal Instagram with your communities. Any amount of exposure, I think would help them out as well. I appreciate any and all that you can do to help this amazing cause. And once again, you can follow along on Instagram. And if you sign up on the Classy for donating, you can participate in the courses to learn more about how to prep for doing an adventure like this yourself.
And like we said, we'll put all the links in the episode show notes so people can check them out. And really great time talking with you, and I'm excited to see your pictures that come from this adventure that you'll be going on, and I can't thank you enough for joining us on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Thank you once again to Em for joining us on the latest bonus episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. Be sure to follow her on Instagram at Emily_goes_exploring to see updates on our thru hike in Scotland. Also, be sure to check out the links in the episode show notes to donate and learn more about the Cairn Project. We'll be putting out bonus episodes throughout the spring and summer, along with our regular episodes on Monday. Please be sure to like and subscribe to not miss out on those. Be sure to also follow us on Instagram at Hikes and Mikes. Happy trails, everyone. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Flip Socks. Whether you're on the trail, on the job, or in the yard, Flip Socks will keep Mother Nature out of your boots with their innovative nylon sleeve. You no longer need to worry about any annoying debris getting trapped in your boots during your hikes. Simply flip down the nylon sleeve over any boot to prevent Mother Nature from finding its way inside, keeping your feet comfortable all day long. To get your first pair, visit flipsocks.com and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for listeners who use the promo code at checkout, I'll be donating 100% of the Season 2 promo code proceeds to Big City Mountaineers, who provide transformative experiences through connections to nature that strengthen life skills and build community for youth and disinvested communities across the nation. So if you're tired of bits and pieces of the trail finding its way into your hiking boots, pick up a pair of Flip Socks today with the promo code HikesMikes10 to get 10% off. For website and promo code, see the episode description.